What's up guys, welcome to another video. This is going to be the first video in a video series where I paint Abbadon the despoiler. I'm specifically focusing on his face and glow effect around his head here, and in the other videos I'll tackle the other sections of the model. Now I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time on this model and I want to make it the best that I can, and I want to record this so you guys have a guide. So let's go. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on his wonderful looking face. He's got this really nice, serious expression, and he just looks like he's disapproving of everything, which is very fitting for Abbadon the despoiler. So I'm going to paint the glow effect first. He's starting with whole red, progressing to this regular flat red, and then progressing to clear orange. And then finally, I will use yellow, this lemon yellow, to brighten up mixtures to give the glow a nice bright effect. So all right, for the base coat, I'm going to be making a pretty thin paint. I don't want something that's going to completely cover all of the black, and the reason for that is because I want some of this black to show through. So you can kind of see here I'm watering down this paint. I don't want to over water it though, but I want a decent like watery consistency like this. So this is a pretty thin paint, and just to show you the consistency, this is where I'm at. But I just want to do a quick base coat. Yeah, I'm going to get paint on his head, which is why I'm doing this first. And there you go. That's the base coat right there. The next step is to take red, and I'm going to be mixing this with my brown to create a reddish brown. And I'm just going to be painting slightly less of the areas that I just painted. Now for the paint consistency, again, I'm going for something that's watery. I don't want something that's too opaque. So you can see here that it doesn't completely cover the brown. It's nice. Yeah, and if I paint more layers of red in one area, it's going to cover a little bit more nicely. Now you can see here, I'm not really worried about getting red on the face because I'm going to cover that later. Looking back, I would recommend leaving the face and hair off the model when you base coat this section. It's going to make it a lot easier to get back in the nooks and crannies in the back of his hood. There you go. All right, and next I am going to pure red. I'm using again, a similar paint consistency that's not, you can see it's not like too thick. And something else I'm doing here is when I'm loading my brush, so I'm actually loading the brush very close to the end, like right here. And the reason why is because this is a smaller brush, so I'm really trying to fill up the belly of the brush. That way there's paint on the brush for me to do like these types of highlights. Now let's see how this looks. You see how this isn't giving me full coverage? Yeah, that's the paint consistency I'm going for. I'm just gonna pick out the little details here. So this thing here, I'm gonna paint this a brighter red. I'm gonna paint like the inside of his hood here. All right, and there you go. It's kind of already starting to look like a nice glow, which is pretty cool. All right, next I'm going to introduce my orange, and then we're gonna go. See, it's not fully covering the paint underneath. And I'm just using this to catch certain areas in the model. Right here, this is like the main section I'm focusing on. And then on this side, I want to make sure I'm painting the inside as well. Try again. So I'll be mixing yellow with red. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is very bright. It might be too different from the red I'm going for. In my opinion, it's a little bit too yellow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create more of a red glaze by mixing in a good amount of water with my red to create something very thin that looks like this on my skin. But the goal here is I want to make it a little bit less yellow. And from here, the next step for me is to just start painting the face. The way that I'm going to approach this is I'm going to base coat the face using a thin layer of whole red. I'll probably use a couple layers to build up opacity. And then after that, I will use Abbadon black. I don't have a black wash, so I'm going to thin this down and use this to recess shade the face. Then after that, I'm going to use some mixture of this flat flesh and this ochre brown to create the next layer on the face. And then I will eventually end by using this on the high highlights. Now I probably won't use all of this like pure on the high highlights. I'll probably mix this with flat flesh. That's the general idea of how I'm gonna approach the face. And then at the end, I'm going to add in some red, kind of like in the same areas where it's already, where I was like painting. I wanna add some red here on this side, probably his chin or around the back of his head. So it simulates that glow effect from the inside of his armor. That's the approach I'm gonna take. Now let's go. Adding red and yellow to things can make it look a little bit more skin tone-ish. I think this is a fine base coat. I'll go from here. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna water this down. Let's see. Yeah, something like this where I can build up my layers. So let's go. So I'm gonna use this. I want the black to show through. And I'm gonna avoid his deep features, like around his eye. And I'm gonna use this paint to build up layers. Where I'm at, I've got most of the base coat down, and at this point, I'm just building up the areas that I think should be the brightest. So like his cheekbones, around his eye, his ear, his chin, maybe his jaw. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on here. Now, the thing about the inside of his head on his right, I want to give this side more of a glow effect. So I think I'll probably paint this side more of a red, but this is turning out pretty nice. I think it's about ready for the next coat. All right, before progressing up the colors and getting brighter and brighter and brighter, I'm gonna add in some shadow here, and I'm going to just do this with Abbadon Black. And I'm gonna heavily water this down. I want it to be really watery. So that might be a little bit too much moisture. I want this to be really controlled. So where am I putting this? It's gonna go in all the recessed areas. So this is going around his eye, under his nose, on this side especially. Because I'm using such a thin coat, you can kind of see it's just nicely shadowing these sections for me. All right, now that those shadows are applied, I'm actually gonna take my old paint and do a little bit of touching up. So I just want to touch up some of these high points and just add a little bit of color back. You know, I like painting faces. It's kind of fun. It's not many brush strokes. You just like touch, 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 and then you're like done, and then you can move on to the next layer. It's not like painting the whole armor or anything like that. So yeah, I think this is looking pretty good. Let's go to the next layer. All right, for the next color, I'm taking flat flesh, and I'm gonna be mixing it with that brown ochre. Now, just like the previous layer, I'm going super thin layers, like watery thin layers, and not like a wash, but like almost like, yeah. All right, I made my paint a tad darker. Let's see how it looks when I paint it on. It looks the same color, but I'm hoping that it will dry a little bit darker. All right, some of these transitions are a little harsh, like I think on his cheek right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to my layer down, which was my whole red layer, and I'm gonna add a glaze over that to smooth that out. Let's go. Let's paint that on. All right, we're ready for the next layer. I'm gonna add some additional skin tone in here to brighten it up. I'll mix in just a little bit more brown and color. This should be good. It's brighter. Indeed. But I'm going for that dramatic shine. I'm gonna keep going up in color. I'm gonna go, I'll just mix in some more skin tone to make a brighter skin tone color. And again, I wanna really brighten up this area. His nose. Don't want to overdo it. Okay, so off camera, I decided his face was a little bit too dark. So what I decided to do was mix in some more of this brown ochre into my whole red to create a brighter color. And I was using this to glaze over a lot of these areas, like, you know, even like up here. And just kind of adding in these glazes, especially on his cheek here. I want to figure out what to do with this part. Just glazing it. But I'm trying to leave all the deep shadows though. Let's go ahead and do the final highlight on this guy. And I'm going to mix this into my existing color to really try to brighten it up here. And I'm only going to use, I'm going to use this very sparingly at a very wet consistency here. Like you can see, it's very bright. So I'm going to use it up here on his forehead. You know, sometimes you, on a paint job, you'll get so far into it and you'll say, oh, it looks so good, I'm afraid to mess it up. I've been there a lot of times, but you know, sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to take that extra step and just try, you know? So that's how you get better at this, I think, is you just have to try. There you go. That looks really good in my opinion. All right. And I think the face is in a pretty good spot right now. He looks really menacing. I like how deep the shadows are in his eyes. I think that as of this point, I'm going to move on to the red OSL. So my plan here is to use a very wet paint, just like I painted the rest of the head. And I'm gonna probably use my bright paint mixture of like really just red and yellow. See, this is like not turning out how I wanted it to, but you just gotta try. My glaze might be too strong, actually, is the thing. I think it needs to be more watery. Yeah, something like really thin. All right, we're gonna go for it. OSL effects like really scare me because I feel like it can ruin all the hard work that I've done. But the worst thing that can happen is you mess up. And then if you mess up, you just try again. This side looks pretty good. I think it's more this other side over here where his ear is. So yeah, I'm gonna have to work at this for a minute. All right, it's starting to come together. I think I put a little bit too much on his chin here, so I'm gonna fix that. But all right, so after some smoothing, I took away the pink on his chin here, and I smoothed up the transition on the red towards the back. So it's looking a little bit better here, but I think he needs a little bit more red. So for this, I'm using a very thin down, just regular red paint. I'm putting quite a bit of water in here and just thinning this down so that it comes off my brush very sparingly. And I'm using this to very slowly and carefully build up the red hue on his face. It's kind of taking a while, but I think it's worth it. The source of the light needs to be brighter than what is actually on the face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some orange with my red and a little bit of my yellow to create a brighter color. And then I'm going to put this on certain areas within the hood. Like I'm gonna put this here, and I'm gonna put this on his collar. All right, I did some additional blending like underneath his eye and things like this. Now, for the knob on his head, I base coated it using a kind of a bright gray, and I'm going to build this up using some highlights. I'm going to use white, and then on part of it, I'm probably going to put a little bit of reds for the OSL. At this point, it was just a matter of refining the face and touching up certain areas, like within the hood. I made certain sections a little bit brighter. You can see here I'm adding white, and then I glaze over this with reds and yellows to make it blend in more. I also smoothed some of the transitions on his forehead, on his nose, and I dotted his eyes with white. I had a lot of fun painting this section of the model, and I hope that you're encouraged by this video to go paint really awesome looking Abbadon the Despoilers or Black Legionaries. So with that, I'm going to end the video, and if you want to see more, like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.